longer than the last group. Introductions, please. Tell us, and the first one for each of the districts that we've got here, 73 and 74, tell us where your district is. You don't need to repeat it, but one of you. Start with you down there, James.
We're doing our intros, right? My name is James Buchanan.
Here's a microphone.
Make sure you got it turned on.
My name is James Buchanan, and I'm running for State House, District 74. And in terms of the geography of the district, east of 75, south of Clark Road, it's going to go east to the county line, south to the county line. It's going to follow down to 681, then it's going to come back north, west of 41 to Blackburn Point Road. That's the geography of the district. I'm a small business owner. My wife and I we met here locally at Cardinal Mooney High School. I went on, I was actually blessed, I received a scholarship to play football at Florida State University. I came back home and went into real estate, of which I worked with Michael Saunders and company for a number of years before deciding to go out on my own. I started my own business in 2010. I also decided to go on and get a master's degree, of which I graduated from University of South Florida. And as a small business owner, I'm someone that understands what it takes to create jobs and create an environment of which we can continue to be more successful. And I look forward to hearing your input as we move forward here and getting to know everyone and answering your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, James. My name is Robert Samuel Kaplan. I'm a native of Dist, Florida since 1955. Like James, I attended Catholic school myself, which was a good experience for me. And I graduated from a public school also, Dist High School in 1974. So education is really important to me right now. So a brief past history, I'm still a licensed certified nursing assistant for the state of Florida. I've been helping take care of patients now since 1998, and I sometimes do it voluntarily right now since I'll be 63 in October. And I'm a graduate from the University of South Florida at age 55 with a BA degree in psychology. And hopefully I would like to go to University of South Florida in Tampa to finish up public health. I became interested in politics in 2014 when I ran against Julio Gonzalez as an independent writing candidate. And I was the second man standing, receiving 18% of the vote as a writer. Then, in 2016, I ran for U.S. Senate against Marco Rubio. Of course, there was like 10 candidates with them, and we received 15% of the vote as a writer. So they asked me to run one more time, and this is my last run. And I've been fortunate enough to talk to Uncle Ray since 2014, because I call him Uncle. And Julio, and of course James' dad and Vern, and we've been talking since 2014 to try to help solve the problems with Florida. I am honored and humbled to be a part of the political scene, and I love Sarasota County, Florida. It's been my home since 1955, and I want to keep Florida's water beautiful again, and we need to keep Florida, the water is clear, so we have to have this problem of red tide and algae blooms, and let people own up to the mistakes so we can solve solutions. And the reason why I say that, it's very important that y'all understand one thing. When I debated Julio Gonzalez, a question came up.
Excuse me. Mr. Kaplan, we're going to get into all of those issues, so
okay.
could you just go ahead and wrap up?
I've already wrapped up, but wonderfully humbled to be your candidate for, I'm an MPA candidate. I'm on the ballot. I'm not a writer anymore.
Hi everyone, my name is Liv Coleman, that's L-I-V as in victory, C-O-L-E-M-A-N. I'm 39 years old. I lived in Florida for about 10 years now. I grew up in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm an educator from a family of educators. I went off to school on the East Coast. I got my bachelor's degree at Smith College. Spent summers back in Minneapolis, working at the Minneapolis mayor's office for a couple summers, so I got some practical experience and training in our democratic system of government, and I learned what it really means to serve a community by doing a lot of constituent work and hearing what people had to say about everyday problems in their lives. I eventually got my PhD in political science from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I spent a year as an advanced research fellow at Harvard, and then I came down to Florida, and I've been teaching for about 10 years now. I'm in my 10th year of teaching at the University of Tampa in political science and international studies. My husband teaches at New College of Florida in Sarasota in computer science. And the reason I'm running for Florida State House District 73, which covers East Manatee and Sarasota east of I-75, is I've been so concerned about the crisis of democracy that our country's been facing. I've been concerned about attacks on rule of law, independent judiciary, freedom of the press, and attacks on the very idea of America that I grew up with, the notion that we're all created equal, that we all have inalienable rights, and we all have the right to exercise those rights, regardless of our race, ethnicity, country of origin, religion, and so forth. And I think we need to embrace instead of binding nationalism, a binding American nationalism rooted in freedom, tolerance, and the Constitution. And when I think about why people have been losing faith in democracy for so long, I think it's because we've had gridlock in Washington, D.C., and we've had a domination of special interests in Tallahassee. So I think we need to have the best possible representation for Manatee and Sarasota communities in Tallahassee. I think we need to fight for majority priorities, and we need to fight for public education first. So I'm running to make Florida public schools number one. We need to fully fund our public schools. We need to back away from high-stakes testing and take a more balanced approach to teaching and assessment in our schools. And I'd like to see, for good-paying jobs in our community, tuition-free community and technical college for at least a 2-year degree. I also think that whether we were born here or whether we moved here, we all have a responsibility to leave this beautiful state of Florida even better than we found it. So I think we need to invest in fully funding Amendment 1, Florida Forever, for land conservation and water quality. We need to fight for water quality across the board, and we need to keep making sure that our eye is on the ball and keep this great state as beautiful as possible. I'm also a strong supporter of affordable universal health care, common sense gun safety reforms. But again, I think we need to put public education first to maximize our human capabilities, build up our people right here in this community, and do right by our kids. Thanks so much.
My name is Gregory. I'm the Republican nominee for District 73. My voice doesn't always sound like this. I apologize. Like Tracy, I'm fighting a head cold, so I won't be shaking hands afterwards. That's from my respect for you. I don't want you to catch what I've got. Listen, the reason I'm running is going to sound a little bit similar to what Liv just said. I also believe that democracy is under attack. The difference is I believe it's under attack by people that are trying to move our country away from democracy. They're trying to move us towards higher taxes, bigger government, a more socialistic approach, and they're no longer shy about it. They are openly running as socialist Democrats these days. That's why I'm running. I grew up in Florida. 14 days after high school, I went to the Air Force Academy. And then after graduation, I served 20 years in the greatest military, the greatest Air Force in the history of the world. I've spent my entire life defending our democracy and our way of life. And I've been around the world, and I've lived in countries where, some people believe that they're in some ways better than ours. And I can tell you, they are not. They are not. You pick a country, I've probably been there. I've either been assigned there or I've deployed there. And I can tell you they are not better. I could give you example after example. Take Japan, for example, an example I use all the time. In Japan, do you know if you're arrested, you do not have the right to remain silent. If you're silent in Japan when you're arrested and accused of a crime, they can and do use that against you as a sign of your guilt. We are the greatest country in the history of the world because of our Constitution, our Bill of Rights. And I can tell you I'm a constitutional conservative that will defend our rights every vote. There's not going to be a right in there, starting with pro-life rights. I'm always going to defend life. The Second Amendment. If you name a right in the Constitution, I'm going to defend it. That's why I'm running. Like I said, 20 years in the military, deployed, Operation Southern Watch, Enduring Freedom, Iraqi Freedom, but it wasn't just me, it was my wife. Been married for 23 years. She's also a retired lieutenant colonel. And we have 3 sons, 2 of them attend school, the State College of Florida, collegiate school, the dual enrollment program, and one is at a private school. So we've got a lot of experience to talk about education as well. I'll save policy issues for later in this debate. It'd be my honor to represent you in District 73.
Okay, I think they saved the 2 lawyers for last. My name is Tony Mowry. I am a Democrat running for House District 74. I am running to represent my hometown in the Florida legislature. A little bit about myself. I grew up in Venice. I went to Venice Elementary School, Venice High School, went off to college, got my law degree. Ultimately, I clerked at the 11th Circuit. This mic is a little. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals in Atlanta, where I know there was a discussion about criminal justice issues. I saw firsthand the pre-sentencing investigation reports and what impact our criminal justice system in Florida had on individuals. I joined the United States Air Force, like Tommy, and served as a JAG for over 6 years on active duty. In 2013, my wife and I decided to move back to my hometown because we wanted to raise our kids in the place where I grew up and with the advantages that I had down in South Sarasota County. When I got down, I realized, however, that the town had changed, the county had changed, and oftentimes not for the better. And so, as I got more involved in the community, I want to make sure that my kids grow up with the quality of life in South Sarasota County that I grew up with. So, I decided to continue my commitment to service and serve my community to protect our environment. Down in South Sarasota County, it's quite fragile coastal community, and we've seen the effects of the policies of Tallahassee and the county on our water quality. And I want to address those issues. I'm a product of the public schools, as I said, so those issues, those issues are, I'm here to fight for our public schools because my 2 kids go to Venice Elementary School, the same school I went to, and I know what a quality education I received, and I want to make sure that they receive the same education. Last, I am an elder law attorney in town, on the island of Venice, and I've represented many elderly clients. There's a joke in Sarasota County that your grandparents live in Sarasota and their parents live in Venice. That's true, and I represent a lot of them. And so I realized that I could do good client by client, but I could do a lot more good with my expertise in the Florida House to make sure that we promote policies that will protect our elderly population. So I decided to throw my hat in the ring, and with that, I guess we'll get on to the substantive questions.
Thank you all. I will see if it works.
You swear you hold it.
Well, I have to use that one, Tony.
No, it's working now. Where you hold it.
It's working?
Yeah,
There
it
it
works.
goes. There it goes.
You have to hold it like this.
Yeah, sometimes this one's tricky. You gotta hold it like a rock star.
I think we gotta find some.
Won't waste time because we really, okay, you all heard the first panel. You know the kinds of issues that people are interested in, so we're going to go through them again with you all. You've all mentioned some of these in your introduction, so let's start with the schools. Let's each of you talk about the schools, what the legislature, if you were in the legislature, never mind just locally, but if you were up there in Tallahassee making decisions about budgets and teaching history and teacher salaries. Let's hear your thoughts. We'll start with you, Tony.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me just start with the story is how I'd like to start this, because like I said, I'm a product of the public schools. My father is a wallpaper hanger down in South Venice, and my mother is a secretary. And I can tell you that not one time growing up and going to school in Sarasota did I ever think I was limited in any way in what I could do. And look at me now, I'm in the big city of Sarasota talking to you folks. And I credit the public schools and the teachers I had with that. I was actually at the Labor Day parade in Inglewood this last weekend, and I heard a cheer from the crowd, or a yell from the crowd, I guess, and I ran over, and it was Miss Soderquist, my 4th grade teacher at Venice Elementary School. So, and I remembered what she looked like, and I remembered her name because it had that big of an impact on me. So I will be up there fighting for our public schools, because I don't want Florida to be a petri dish for transferring public school money to private schools. And I'm not going to give much more than that, other than to say that I believe in the public schools. I believe we need to continue the quality schools we have in Sarasota County and improve public schools, and not experiment with our school children.
Well, there's almost an unlimited number of things we could talk about when it comes to schools. I think I'd have to start with the school safety bill. There was several things I didn't like about the bill, but the number one complaint I had was that we sent down a bill essentially as an unfunded mandate, because we know the best solution is law enforcement officers. That's the best solution on every campus, but we didn't fund it. We did a good job in terms of giving $400 million towards it, but if you want to protect schools, you're going to have to put law enforcement there, or you're going to have another solution. The other thing that I would do, and I'm not a fan of mandates from Tallahassee any more than I'm a fan of mandate from Washington, D.C., but I think right on the heels of mandating civics, we need to mandate financial literacy. We need to have financial literacy classes. And then the third thing I would absolutely support would be teacher salary increases across the board. I agree with Tony. The thing that makes your school great, I don't care if it's a private school or a public school, is going to be your teachers. So those would be the 3 things I would be focused on.
So as a lifelong educator, I'm extremely interested in our public school system and safeguarding it. One of the things that I'd like to do is make sure, again, our schools are fully funded, and make sure we increase the funding for our schools, because, as Tommy said, there are these unfunded mandates for school security and for other areas. As our last panel also indicated, a drastic underfunding, even we're in the bottom 10% of all states on a per pupil basis for funding of our public schools, and we can do better. And that also includes pay for our teachers as well. Actually, I go door knocking all the time. I'm on the phone all the time trying to reach voters. And I remember it was the first day of school for Manatee County, and I knocked on the door of a woman who came out, and she had an adorable T-shirt. It said, "Proud to be a teacher," something like that. And she said, "Well, I'm on the phone. I can't really talk. I'm working my second job." And it's like, teaching should be a middle-class job. It should have middle-class wages. It shouldn't be so hard to get by. And so we can do better across the board for all the wonderful people and professionals and support staff who work with our kids to make sure they have the best environment possible. To make sure that happens, too, we need to make sure that public dollars stay in the public school system and they don't get funneled for profit charter schools. And then the other thing I hear, whether I'm talking to principals, I'm talking to teachers, I'm talking to parents, I'm talking to students themselves, I hear just too much emphasis on testing in the schools. Testing has a role to play. I do tests in my own classes, of course, but we need a more balanced approach to testing and assessment. The high stakes stuff is it's kind of poisoning our educational atmosphere. Teachers are teaching overwhelmingly to the test. It's a lot of pressure on the students. I hear from parents that their kids, in 3rd grade, as they're worried about passing their high stakes tests, their kids, I've heard kids throwing up at night before the tests, and they're 8 years old. It's just, learning, especially when you're in the youngest grade, should be a joy, and it shouldn't be so burdensome. And students need to have room in the curriculum for creativity and communication and critical thinking skills, and we don't have to have that kind of room for teachers to be professionals right now in that kind of environment. And as I mentioned before too, I think in this post-industrial era, Everybody needs in order to get a good paying job, increasingly we all need to have some kind of skill that's in demand after high school, and that also, and we need good paying jobs in our communities, so I advocate for tuition-free community and technical college for at least a 2-year degree. So I think these are all, critical education priorities, and thanks very much.
Again, just a reminder, the briefer we can keep our answers, all of us, the more ground we can cover.
Absolutely. The most important thing about education, I would say, is the teacher's salary. See, it seems like education always gets cut, no matter what. They keep on cutting education. Personally, I feel the government should stay out of education and give it back to the states. But to move on, right? I'm just somebody trying to run for office. But when I was in undergraduate school, my teachers always complained. Their salaries are like 40 to 46K a year. Well, lo and behold, the median salary of District 16 is 46K, okay? So what I'm worried about is that teachers they spend over what they make because they have to buy their supplies for the students. They're broke all the time. So the teachers take up the brunt for the kids for them to work. But again, education gets cut all the time, just like disabled gets cut all the time. I'm tired of the middle class getting cut all the time. So one of the reasons why I'm running is to protect the middle class, because it's almost fading, and I'm worried about it. So the moral of the story of the economy, the cost of living has surpassed our salaries. And if we keep on continuing this course, we won't have health care, or we won't have education. So it's a matter of who's going to do the right thing. I have a lot of ideas, and I'm sure Mr. Buchanan and everybody else has a lot of ideas, but there's got to be a solution to the problem. And I just want to be part of the solution, not the problem. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So I have a daughter that's 16 months old. She's too young to begin school, but I think our goal for Florida should be to make Florida a world-class education destination. There's no reason I want her generation, it starts with education, to have a better opportunity than our generation did. And a lot of this goes back, we need to make sure that our teachers are being paid enough and they can live in the communities of which they teach. I think that's something we need to focus on. If kids are bullied, or if they have a learning challenge, there needs to be other options available to them. That's very important to me in business. It's good to have competition, and I think it's good in our school system as well. In terms of, I think we were talking about civics earlier, we've hit a lot of doors over the last few months. This has actually come up at 2 or 3 different doors. At the high school level, and it's interesting that each individual thought it should be a requirement at the high school level, a 2 or 3 course requirement that kids learn the Constitution, they learn about the Founding Fathers, and they learn about the history of this country. And I think that's something that's very important. And just to expand on what Liv was saying earlier, I think it's important that we also focus on there's too much testing for these kids. I think that's something we need to, we can do away with. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay. One of the big issues, as you heard before, was the fact that growth management in Tallahassee was pretty much eliminated in terms of oversight over counties and cities, comp plans and all of that. So would each of you address, which is really one of the big issues, the whole environment, which it's easy to say we all support the environment and all of those sorts of things. But what about in Tallahassee, which makes the rules? What kinds of things would you do if you were up in Tallahassee to improve our whole growth management situation? And James, we'll start with you since you still have the mic in your hand.
Okay, I guess that's how it works, huh? One thing that has come up a lot at the door